Most of us know that the world paid a lot of attention to the Philippines' fight, loss, and resettling after the World War II. But how many of us know about the controversial massacre that occurred in Corregidor in 1968? The what? Well, don't you worry, because in this video, we will be addressing the truth about the Jabidah massacre. My name is Miles and I will be your first reporter. So, the administration of Ferdinand Marcos constructed a master plan that became known as the Operation Merdeka. So, the plan is straightforward: attack Malaysia and reclaim the disputed area of Sabah for the Philippines. The new recruits of the operation were given the name Jabidah. So, Jimin Arula is the only survivor of the Jabidah massacre, and after he was rescued, he testified and revealed the whole scheme of the operation. However, Jimin Arula's testimony somehow changed over time, leading some people to question his truthfulness and legitimacy, and in turn ignited an intense controversy. Anyway, this tragic event was brought to the attention of the public by the late Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. in a privileged speech given in the Legislative Building in Manila around 1968. Ninoy Aquino interviewed Arula after he was rescued. And as a journalist, he checked the details Arula presented and went to Tawi-Tawi on his own. Not on his own, but went to Tawi-Tawi himself. So, furthermore, Rigoberto Tiglao claims in his book titled The Bunk that the so-called Jabidah massacre was the first massive false news story spread by the Yellow Cult, or the opposition team, termed as Yellows. So this book was recently published, and so I am quite doubtful of its authenticity. So overall, this event sparked a wave of protests from both Muslim and non-Muslim activists in Manila and Mindanao, as well as from the opposition politicians and Muslim politicians. It is also thought that the Jabidah massacre was one of the driving forces of the establishment of the Moro National Liberation Front, or MNLF. So that's it for the summary. Thank you so much for listening.
So next is a type of source. This is the claimed sole survivor of the Jabidah massacre, Jibin Arula, one of the volunteer Muslim trainees recruited under the Oplan Merdeka. Jibin, who is a witness and has a first-hand account, is undoubtedly considered as the primary source of the Jabidah massacre. In an interview with the Minda News in 2009, Jibin said that they were told by the officials on December 17, 1967, that their mission was to claim Sabah, Malaysia. And on January 3, 1968, they arrived at the Corridor Island. He also recalled that 87 of them petitioned to Malacanang about the food, the non-payment of allowance, and the soldiers bringing young women into the camp. And this was written and signed by them without the knowledge of the soldiers. On the contrary, another secondary source from the historian Tirmizi Abdullah, the reason of the massacre was that the trainees are not informed ahead of what was their mission, and upon knowing to claim Sabah where their Muslim brothers live, they rebelled. However, this was never claimed by Jibin Arula, who is considered the primary source. Moreover, in Jibin's sworn statement kept in the Official Gazette of the Philippines dated March 28, 1968, he said that upon reaching the airstrip, they were told to line up. They were unarmed while their escorts carried armalines. And these claims were the same with the secondary sources, the Corridor Massacre 1968, written by Whitman, and the 2000 award-winning book Under the Crescent Moon, Rebellion from Mindanao. Another secondary source is from the case study on the fluidity and stability of personal memory of Jibin Arula. Jibin recalled that in 1969 to 1970, he came to know about the MNLF founded by Noor Miswari, who also told him that he will avenge the Muslim race. And so Jibin was convinced by the rhetoric. And so he implied in his 2009 interview that the Jabidah was not solely about the Muslims and the communal myth that he subscribed to through the years, but it is about the loss of the 200,000 innocent lives which he believed could have been saved had he kept silent about the incident. So clearly, For Jabin, the meanings of Jabidah had shifted in alignment with the needs of the time. But what remained fairly constant and stable in Jabin's recollection amidst the intensity of memory wars were the mundane and the worldly roots of the incident, which is money, food, and corruption. Hence, it should not come as a surprise that some aspects of Jabin's recollection of the Jabidah massacre and his interpretations of its place at a larger scheme of things have been altered, influenced, or reshaped by the dominant discourses of the time. However, these shifting testimonies of Jabin as the primary source had led to further controversies about the truth of the Jabidah massacre.
Good day everyone, I am Andrea May Sonatorio, and today I am going to discuss about the controversy of Jabidah Massacre. So according to Rigoberto Tiglao's book entitled Debunk, the so-called Jabidah Massacre of March 1968 was the Yellow Cult's first colossal fake news. Even after 50 years, not a single victim of the Alleged massacre has been located, proving there was in fact no massacre. So when the controversy subsided, Jibin Arula, the lone purported eyewitness to the massacre, chose to live in Antique rather than return to his own province of Sulu. The Moro National Liberation Front and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front never took him under protection, and neither group has ever stated in official papers that the alleged massacre took place. But then, since the book was recently published, we cannot assure that Jabidah massacre really not exist because this book was no scant of documentary evidence to back up the claims of the author.
Good day, I am Erica Gunath-Relacion and now we'll be discussing a controversy in our topic. Aside from this topic being a controversy itself, there are also stories that contradict every story that has been told, like the different claims from the former Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr., where he stated that there was no massacre happened and his version of tragedy was supported by his son, the former president. Ninoy's statement was based on the interview of the survivor Jibin Arula, in which Arula stated that there was firing and he saw his troops on the ground, but were they shot or did they just duck? Also, Arula only stated that the recruits were taken to the airport by batch and never seen again. He never stated that he saw them being killed or massacred, and so Ninoy concluded that there was no massacre based on Arula's statements. While claims from the Bangsamoro and the researchers, historians, and reporters from GMA News or the media stated that there was a massacre happened in which Jabidah troops were shot, burned, and thrown to the ocean with a big stone on them. Bangsamoro was formed because of the Jabidah massacre, and it is composed of people who believe that the massacre happened and that they stand with it.
Good day, sir, and to all my classmates who viewing this discussion. My name is Sir Tricia B. So for today's topic about the truth of Jabidah massacre, I'm going to interpret my conclusion about the controversies you've heard earlier. So let's proceed. Both the controversies have different resources, but both have the same perspective, by stating that there was no massacre happened. Andrea's topic is about the book of Rigoberto Tiglao entitled Debunked, who called Jabidah massacre. Even after 50 years, no victims of claimed massacre has been identified, showing there was no massacre. And it was the Yellow's called first colossal fake news. And Erica's topic, which according to the many statements made by the former Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr., who maintained that no massacre occurred and that his account of the disaster was confirmed by his son. The former President Ninoy's declaration was based on a conversation with survivor Jibin Arula. He said a lot of things, but he never said anything about seeing them killed or massacred. Therefore, Ninoy decided that there was no massacre based on Arola's statements. The story of Jabidah massacre will live on in our hearts forever. Whether it is true or not, as long as there are oppressed groups, as long as communities are murdered for their identity, and as long as peace remains elusive for the Bangsamoro communities, Jabidah will be relevant and remembered. So that's all. Thank you and
So hi guys, my name is Naimi Sitabulong and now we are going to move forward about the topic of the relevance of the Jabidah massacre to Philippine history. So, When we talk about the word Jabidah, it is the code name for the sinister design of President Ferdinand E. Marcos. So the Jabidah massacre, it reminded us how the Philippine government plotted the taking of Sabah through the covert military operation named the Upland Merdeka, so that used the more youth as soldiers to stage an attack that would claim Sabah. So defying the operation, these youth were killed, and evidence of the operation were covered up. So the Jabidah massacre demonstrated the Morris people's right to take up arms and defense their homes and fellow citizens and to engage the fight for their inalienable right to self-determination. So the desire to continue the armed fight grow as the government continues to wage wars and genocidal campaign. So the massacre that happened decades ago paved the way for the rebirth of the Moro people's armed struggle. So, and the present situation of the Bangsamoro might again ignite the need to revolt. So the justice must entail the freedom of the Bangsamoro from prejudice, eviction, militarism, and political repression. Justice must include the freedom to choose our own fate. So we must be reminded of the tragedy and significance of the Jabidah massacre in the history of the Moro struggle and the challenges that lay ahead of us.
The relevance of the topic for the new Filipino generation is that the extensive survey of this point concerning the Jabidah massacre controversy has scored the confusion of people whether it did happen or not. But with this topic, it will give bits of knowledge to the new Filipino age to have a grasp on the set of experiences and discussions of the Jabidah massacre controversy. In such manner, this topic will help the more youthful age in illuminating themselves on the most proficient method, to enlighten their minds and analyze properly, to have and to do efficient and effective research, for them to be able to know the truth behind every controversy. Regardless of the way that there are numerous things that are disagreeable about this issue, one of which is having a witness in the current situation impacts a lot. Also, there are different versions of the story that were told, but having its puzzle solved, then it is confirmed that it was just all the same. Moreover, being aware of the truth will be very beneficial, especially in today's generation, because there are a lot of people who just believe in one click. However, because of the analysis introduced by this topic, verifiable people and youthful Filipino ages will have a new viewpoint on the most proficient method to manage these thoughts and discussions by grasping its pertinence in the past, present, and the next existing years to come. Furthermore, the point of view given in this study will push for new ideas that will be pertinent in later discussions regarding the said controversy.
And now let's proceed in my realization. So there are still many people who doubt that the Jabidah massacre ever occurred. Overall, it might be stated that the Jabidah massacre was fabricated as a smear against Marcos by the late President Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. So with that, I agree that Jabidah massacre was really happened since I read many statements which encompasses its existence. And in fact, the Senate and the House of Representatives in the Philippine Congress each carried out in-depth investigations into the killing.
My realization about our topic is that the Jabidah massacre is like a maze, so many claims and stories, and yet the truth was never truly justified. It is as if it never happened based on the survivor's statement. Jibin Arula, the only survivor who was also interviewed by Media News, stated the details, but he never saw his troops dead and massacred. It may be the truth wherein really stated that a Jabidah was formed for the late Ferdinand Marcos Upland Merdeka or freedom for the land of Sabah. Well, a story should be supported with claims that have evidences for it to be considered the truth.
Hi, it's me, Trisha again. My realization about the topic Jabidah Massacre is that it is an interesting topic, yet it is difficult to figure out what is the core truth or not. There are many stories, claims, and other resources that we can acquire. The story of the Jabidah Massacre is not only historical, it is also contains all of the people's hope and dreams as a community and as a nation. It can be told from a various perspective, but it will be remembered as a milestone moment in the history of the Bangsamoro struggle.